Shout out to Hype or at DBHypeX on Twitter for providing these translations for me early. This man goes hard and he definitely deserves a shout out. I forgot to say it in my initial recording, but hopefully this will make it into the video because you gotta credit someone for doing some hard work like this guy. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we've reached that day of the week. Alright, we got some translations for some My Hero Academia spoilers, and from the looks of it, these seem to be pretty legit. They were retweeted by Vocal Pineapple, so usually that means they're pretty legit. There's four scans, and there is a big long summary that we get to go over. So this is going to be good, boys. I won't show the scans, of course, but we got a big, long, and juicy summary for this week's chapter. So let's go ahead and dive right into it because this is going to take a long time. Just so you know, spoilers for My Hero Academia manga chapter, of course. It'll be in the title, but we will be getting Endeavor versus Shigaraki in this chapter, just like everyone thought. So let's dive in. First, so this chapter is called Search. It says this chapter opens with Endeavor flying straight for Shigaraki with a small explanatory text saying number 1 versus Shigaraki. The fight starts off with Endeavor flying in an attempt to land a blow on Shigaraki. Shigaraki watches Endeavor come closer to him, but is stunned into place with inner thoughts saying, "One for all," and is hit with Endeavor's Hell Curtain attack. So, I do not know what Endeavor's Hell Curtain attack is. If you know, good for you. You pay attention. Because I sure as hell do not remember what the fuck that was. Another thing is I'm finding it consistently interesting that Shigaraki now has inner thoughts speaking to him. Like it said in the last chapter. I don't remember exactly what it said to him. But in this chapter, his inner thoughts saying one for all. So I'm interested to see if Shiggy has one for all. If it manifests like If he has all for one, I'm stupid. If it manifests similar. I can't speak, dude. Speaking sucks. If it is similar to the way that Deku has the voices in his head, I'm interested to see if they will explain that or not. I'm interested to see if they will explain on how the all for one quirk works. Sorry that it took so long for me to say that. It's 4 a.m. for me, and my brain is dead inside, okay? But Twitterverse has to Twitter, and these summaries are up. Anyway, Endeavor yells that Shigaraki cannot resist his high-temperature fire, and that Shigaraki can't run from this. Endeavor thinks to himself, this guy isn't going one step further. I can't let this man go. Once again, we are confirming that Shigaraki is pretty much... He's priority number 1. He has risen up the threat level. Looking back at him in the first arc of My Hero, he was just some dude, and now in this arc, he is now probably the most dangerous villain in Japan at the moment, which is why he deserves the number 1 hero, and for good reason, of course. So that's the first paragraph done. Next up, we get Endeavor continues to think without much combat, and as quickly as possible. He has to finish this fight, is what it means, as he rears up to do a jet burn attack. Shigaraki then lunges towards Endeavor's face with his hand and swipe, but misses as Endeavor aborts his attack and dodges backwards in the air. Endeavor is surprised that Shigaraki is able to move so nimbly after being blasted by his previous Hell Curtain attack, thinking to himself to be able to move after experiencing such a hot temperature. Now this is interesting for the next paragraph completely. First off, I just want to say, Endeavor is trying to finish this as quickly as possible because he knows there's a huge city that may still have people left, even though it's a crater. And there are people that could potentially die because he knows how dangerous Shiggy is. Second, Shiggy, of course, will always lunge for your face and try to decay you. Endeavor has very high reaction time. Endeavor is no punk to fighting, so Shiggy can't just lunge towards his face and decay him instantly. You're going to have to do a bit better than that if you want to defeat Endeavor. The fact that Shigaraki can still move so quickly after enduring such hot fire is once again, props to Shigaraki's pain resistance. And for this next paragraph is even more interesting. It's at this moment Endeavor realizes that Shigaraki must have regeneration capabilities. Endeavor changes tactics and instead of flying to meet Shigaraki head on, propels himself up into the air behind Shigaraki and attempts to punch him down into the ground. So this is where we kind of get the confirmation that Shigaraki now has the regeneration quirk, which is the quirk that allows the doctor to heal all of his injuries and stay as young as he has for so long. So now Shigaraki has, and it's also safe to assume that All For One has this quirk as well. It's safe to assume that Shigaraki was it was given the original quirk of regeneration, which sacrifices his athleticism but gives him regeneration abilities, which is why he's able to withstand Endeavor's high resistance flames. So it's right for Endeavor to change tactics because now we got like a Majin Buu situation here. I don't think regeneration is quite as bad as someone like Majin Buu. Now you realize that this guy can regen a lot of the injuries you can give him, and that's where things could get scary. So Endeavor accesses his comms to update the others. He says, "This is Endeavor. Shigaraki is fighting at the side of the hospital. Those who can move without touching the ground will soon need to fight back." And is cut off when Shigaraki reaches out of Endeavor's hold to grab Endeavor's arm. Endeavor sees Shigaraki about to grab him and stops Shigaraki by grabbing his arm at the wrist. He says to himself, "Touch," basically reminding himself not to let Shigaraki lay a hand on him or else. Then, with Shigaraki's wrist secured, Endeavor is caught off guard when Shigaraki summons up the power to blast Endeavor away. Endeavor is sent far from Shigaraki and is pushed away with so much force that he bounces off the ground below. Now this is interesting because it says he summons up the power to blast Endeavor away. What exactly is this power? It's not very clear. That's all the summary gives us. I think Shiggy used All For One here. He dug deep down and was able to find a quirk that All For One had stolen, and that's what he used. Endeavor bounces off the ground. This hurt him. Alright, this definitely hurt Endeavor. So Shigaraki stands up among the rubble saying, "The teacher, All For One, was saving up. It's just a feeling. My instinct is all-powerful." Here, Shigaraki is referring to the blast he summoned to push Endeavor away, as he did it in a spur of the moment. The voice comes back into Shigaraki's head, discussing the power that takes 4 months to manifest and the hell that comes along with it. Shigaraki appears to silently grab a few of the good quirk suppressant bullets that were not destroyed and sneak them into his pocket. So if you watched my old chapter review video, I was correct that the quirk destroying bullets were what Shigaraki accidentally decayed, but it looks like there are a few still good ones left. And it says quirk suppressant bullets, so I don't believe these are permanent. However, they still could be permanent. There could be a translation issue. We'll have to wait till the chapter comes out. Either way, Shigaraki puts some of Overhaul's bullets in his pocket. And if these manage to make its way onto Endeavor, even if Endeavor loses his quirk for the short amount of time with the suppressant bullets, Shigaraki can still just absolutely massacre Endeavor from then on out. Without Endeavor's quirk, he really has no chance against Shigaraki. Even with Endeavor's quirk, I highly doubt he'll have a chance. But anyway, that's all we got there. Next up, we then see that the 2 fingers that Shigaraki had lost to Redestra have recently grown back when he moves one of his undamaged family hands. He then seems to feel off and looks a bit odd in appearance as he says, "What's going on? This is unsatisfactory." In Shigaraki's intrusive musings, a voice says, "All For One. Out of all the powers I obtained, there was a force, unexpected force that I could not wield. But this intrusive thought is suddenly cut off when Shigaraki takes control of his own thoughts. He's noticing a difference in himself, saying, "Something in me drives me forward, saying I have to obtain it." Do you see what's going on here? Are you starting to understand what exactly is happening here? Shigaraki is now being driven forward by what seems like the ghost will of All For One. And All For One, I'm pretty sure the only power he could never obtain was the power of One For All. And since My Hero Academia is the parallel story of the greatest villain and the greatest hero, this is pretty much setting up what is going to be the legendary conflict of All For One versus One For All. But instead of All For One versus All Might this time, it's going to remanifest as Shigaraki versus Deku. And this is where we're starting to get the seed planted for Shigaraki once again having to find Deku. Anyway, also this may be the way that Shigaraki learns of One for All. Because I don't think he knows what it is, and he doesn't know that Deku has it. Endeavor gets back on his feet and goes to meet Shigaraki. They're about to blast each other as Shigaraki yells out loud, "One for all." In a continuation of his previous thoughts, Endeavor questions him aloud, "One for all." So Endeavor has no idea what Shigaraki's talking about, but it seems like Shigaraki is being driven by a motivation that is not his own. Now, I don't quite know how to think about this, or what to think about this. I'll talk about it as when the chapter comes out, but I don't know if I'm a big fan of Shigaraki being motivated by an outside force, almost like it's controlling him. I don't really like that. I feel like it takes away from all the character development he's gotten so far, but I'm not going to judge it too much because this is only the first chapter it's been introduced. This is a translation. It's not the real chapter, and I want to see what they do with it first before I fully judge Shigaraki's motivation. So the scene then transitions back to the students and Burnin. Apparently Endeavor said this over the comm system as Burnin questions, "Oh, one for what? Let's go assist." Deku stands behind her, frozen in shock. There is then a side-by-side panel with Shigaraki and Deku. Shigaraki says, "There," as he envisions Deku's face. He then says, "Oh, right." That is implying that he remembers Deku as All Might's successor and the wielder of One for All, which he has an urge to obtain. This, my friends, is the beginning. Deku stands in shock because he realizes that Endeavor is speaking about One for All, which is supposed to be a quirk that is secret, and then Shigaraki then realizes that Deku was All Might's successor and that One for All will be in a confrontation with Deku. So this is what we're beginning to be probably the greatest hero-villain rivalry in the series coming up here. So the scene then transitions to the Pussycats headquarters with Ragdoll sitting at her desk. She says to herself, "I'm upset. If I had Search, which was her stolen quirk, then I could help everyone." It then shows the students and Burnin's crew helping evacuate the citizens. They're saying that they can escape with the rest of the ground heroes who cannot stay around due to Shigaraki's decay quirk, and that they can follow the police to safety. So that's interesting. Endeavor then yells over the comm, we're, implying himself and Shigaraki, we're heading towards the evacuation destination. Whatever evacuation zone you've had pre-established, expand it. Make it many times bigger than the previous order. We then see Deku standing in silence as people discuss plans of action for later. The heroes around him discuss their fear of the next wave of decay, saying they won't last if they're hit with one another. Or with another one. Other heroes are discussing who will stay with the students and protect them, but are unsure of what to do in this crisis. So we're starting to see a bit of paranoia here, because Shigaraki is very much busy with Endeavor right now, who's trying to hold Shigaraki off as long as possible until people can be evacuated. And it seems like the heroes that are taking care of the 1A students are currently having a wave of panic because they don't think they'll survive another wave of Shigaraki's decay, for good reason, of course. Deku then turns and runs back into the fray, but Bakugo is not far behind him. He promises that they will both protect it, but probably inferring One for All. Deku responds by saying, "The safety of the people in the city should be our top priority." Bakugo responds by saying, "I can't just sit still," as he and Deku blast into the sky away from Todoroki, Uraraka, and the other students. Oh boy, are you hearing what I'm hearing, buddy? We're gonna get a Heroes Rising Part 2. Alright, we're gonna get Bakugo and Deku versus Shigaraki, and I'm saying Shigaraki is going to beat the ever-living shit out of them, bro. That's the only thing I can do. So we get to the last page of the summary where Uraraka yells, "Where are you going?" And Deku yells, "I'll be right back." Not a good decision to make. I wouldn't have made this decision. This isn't a very smart decision, because the last thing you want is Shigaraki getting near Deku when he can just touch him and probably absorb One for All. So Deku was worried about capturing Shigaraki due to his newfound power-up and is attempting to think of any other abstract means to capture him. He then realizes that Shigaraki is nearby and wants to lead him to a deserted area. Bakugo yells, "I'll give him my all," as Deku finishes the chapter by saying, "Please believe in us." So this is very clear here. He's setting up a Deku and Bakugo and Endeavor versus Shigaraki. And if we're being clear here, Shigaraki probably doesn't know how to use All for One quite as well. But if there's one thing we can take from this chapter, it's that Endeavor is trying to hold off Shiggy as long as possible. The two biggest things from this chapter, though, is that Shigaraki is being driven by a motivation that is not his own, at least for right now. It seems like there's like a little itch or urge in his head, and All for One is driving him to take the quirk of One for All. That seems to be the big thing here, where Shiggy's being driven. And then 2, Bakugo and Deku are talking about how Bakugo will not let Shiggy take One for All, and that Bakugo and Deku are very, very set on taking down Shigaraki. So Bakugo and Deku and Endeavor versus Shiggy, potentially next chapter. We're getting to some Dragon Ball Z level shit, alright? We're getting to battles that we thought we would only see in One Justice 2. We're getting there, boys. We are getting there. Bakugo and Deku will team up again, probably with Endeavor, to take on Shigaraki. And if we're being clear here, for the story to naturally progress, Shigaraki is going to win. That is my prediction. Endeavor, a lot of people saying Endeavor is going to die next chapter. He didn't. If he does, it won't be for a while. I feel like this is going to be a major fight and confrontation when it's adapted into the anime. So I think it's got to last a bit longer. But anyway, that's all I got for this chapter. This chapter seems extremely hype. We're building towards a potentially insane climactic battle that could have very big ramifications going forward in the My Hero Academia future of the world. And we've got some of our favorite characters. We haven't even talked about other 1A students potentially making their way to the battle site. But what it sounds like is Deku wants to lure Shiggy to a deserted area. So that's like some Dragon Ball Z, let me lure you to a desert wasteland type of shit. And then they're going to fight to high heaven. And I, for one, cannot wait to read that shit.